Chosen one, stop scrolling. Take a breath. This is not background noise. This is not coincidence. And this is not just another motivational message floating through the internet. You were drawn here with intention. Something in your spirit paused when you saw this title. That pause was not curiosity, it was recognition. Because deep down, you already sensed that what's about to be said isn't for everyone. It's for you. And it's meant to be heard in quiet. Alone. Undistracted. There are messages meant for crowds, and then there are messages meant for covenant carriers. You have always felt like you carried something sacred, even when you didn't have language for it. Even when life felt ordinary on the outside, there was always something extraordinary stirring underneath. You've walked into rooms and felt energy shift. You've sensed tension before anyone spoke a word. You've felt the weight of decisions long before others understood their impact. That sensitivity is not weakness. It is spiritual awareness. From a young age, you were marked by difference. Not better than others, just set apart. You couldn't fully blend in. Conversations that entertained others drained you. Superficial connections felt hollow. You longed for depth, for meaning, for truth that anchored the soul. And sometimes that longing made you feel isolated. Like you were too intense, too reflective, too serious. But you were never too much. You were just tuned to a different frequency. There were seasons when you questioned whether God had overlooked you. You watched others accelerate while you seemed to remain in waiting. You saw doors open for people less prepared, less disciplined, less faithful. And in quiet moments you wondered, Lord, did you forget me? But heaven never misplaced your name. In fact, there were divine delays around you that you didn't see. Closed doors that protected you from distractions. Detours that shielded you from derailment. And here's the sacred part. The reason this message feels personal is because it is. You are not just surviving life. You are being shaped for something that requires depth, endurance, and maturity. You were never meant to peak early and fade quietly. You were meant to endure, to refine, to grow roots before rising tall. So watch this alone. Because what is about to unfold isn't for spectators. It's for the chosen. The closer you moved toward obedience, the stronger the resistance became. You felt it. The moment you decided to pray more consistently, distractions multiplied. The moment you committed to guarding your peace, chaos seemed to circle you. When you chose forgiveness instead of bitterness, old memories resurfaced with unexpected intensity. That wasn't coincidence. That was confirmation. The enemy does not waste resources attacking what poses no threat. Pressure increases around potential. You began noticing a pattern. Every time you made progress spiritually, something attempted to pull you backward emotionally. Old habits whispered again. Doubt grew louder. Fatigue settled heavier. And for a while, you wondered if you were regressing instead of growing. But growth often feels like resistance before it feels like expansion. Muscles tear before they strengthen. Faith stretches before it stabilizes. The isolation you've experienced wasn't accidental either. Friends you thought would stay drifted away. Some misunderstood you. Others projected their fears onto you. Conversations that once felt easy started feeling strained. And instead of chasing connection, you found yourself stepping back. That wasn't pride. That was discernment developing. God will often reduce your circle before He expands your influence. Because not everyone who walked with you in survival mode can walk with you in destiny mode. There were nights when the silence felt heavy. When the house was quiet and your thoughts were loud. You replayed conversations. You questioned decisions. You asked God if you were hearing Him correctly. But in those very moments, when it felt like heaven was silent, God was building spiritual stamina in you. He was teaching you to trust His character when you couldn't trace His hand. Refining seasons rarely feel glorious. They feel hidden. They feel stretching. They feel misunderstood. But refining removes impurities that would sabotage elevation later. God was not trying to break you. He was strengthening your foundation. He was removing dependence on applause. He was detoxing you from validation addiction. He was anchoring you in identity that doesn't fluctuate with circumstances. This resistance you felt is not a sign you're off track. It's a sign you're advancing. And the very areas that felt attacked are the areas most anointed in your calling. You weren't being blocked. You were being built. Chosen one, what's coming next in your life requires a version of you that has been forged, not just inspired. That's why the stretching felt relentless. That's why the pruning felt personal. When God prunes, He doesn't ask the branch how it feels, He focuses on what it will produce. And fruit requires space, strength, and structure. You were never being diminished, you were being developed. There were habits you outgrew, conversations you no longer found nourishment in. Environments that once felt normal suddenly felt heavy. That wasn't arrogance, it was evolution. When your spirit matures, your tolerance for dysfunction decreases. You stopped laughing at things that once entertained you. You stopped engaging in gossip that once felt harmless. You stopped chasing approval that once validated you. That shift was evidence that your identity was stabilizing. You carry discernment that most people mistake for distance. You sense undercurrents in conversations. You recognize motives without anyone explaining them. You feel caution before danger surfaces. And sometimes that awareness has made you feel tired, because knowing more means carrying more. But discernment is not a burden, it's a gift. It's a spiritual radar system that protects your calling. Have you noticed how people either open up to you quickly or withdraw from you entirely? Rarely is there indifference. That's because something about your presence unsettles what isn't aligned. You don't have to preach loudly. You don't have to announce authority. It rests on you quietly. And quiet authority is often the most powerful kind. For years, you thought you were simply mature for your age. But what you were experiencing was preparation. God was shaping your responses, teaching you restraint, teaching you patience when you could have retaliated, teaching you humility when you could have exposed someone's weakness. Every moment you chose wisdom over impulse strengthened your spiritual weight. And here's the truth you need to embrace. You were never created to blend into crowds. You were designed to stand firm when others sway, to bring clarity when others panic, to carry peace when others fracture. That's not ego, it's assignment. This next season will demand courage, but it will also reveal capacity you didn't know you had. Because what God placed inside you is finally aligning with where He's taking you. There is a door forming ahead of you that you did not force open. And that is how you will know it is from God. No manipulation. No striving. No exhausting self-promotion. Just alignment. Just timing. Just favor that feels almost too precise to be coincidence. You will look back and realize that the very delays you once resented were actually divine choreography. Every closed door narrowed your focus. Every no refined your direction. Every pause preserved your strength. What was never meant for public ears is this: the obscurity you walked through was strategic concealment. You were hidden because exposure before preparation would have created collapse. There were seasons when you thought, "Why is no one noticing me?" But heaven was not concerned with visibility, it was concerned with stability. God will always build depth before He grants influence. Because influence without depth becomes ego. And ego cannot carry destiny. Think about it. If certain breakthroughs had arrived when you first prayed for them, would your character have been steady enough to sustain them? If certain opportunities had unfolded before you learned restraint, would you have handled criticism with grace? The timing was never about withholding, it was about weight. God was increasing your capacity to carry what He had already decided to give you. And here is something else sacred. Some relationships ended not because you failed, but because they could not follow you where you're going. Not everyone is meant to witness your rising. Some only knew you in survival mode. They would not recognize you in authority mode. And rather than resent their departure, understand it as redirection. You are stepping into a season where clarity replaces confusion, where peace replaces striving, where opportunities arrive without begging. And the shift may begin quietly: subtle conversations, unexpected connections, internal confidence that feels new but steady. But do not underestimate subtle beginnings. God often moves in whispers before He moves in waves. You were not overlooked. You were preserved. And now that the foundation is secure, the elevation can begin without fear of collapse. But hear this clearly, chosen one: when elevation begins, observation increases. The same people who overlooked you will suddenly remember your name. The same voices that doubted you will grow quiet, watching from a distance. Not all attention is celebration. Some of it is evaluation. That's why God built your roots in private before allowing fruit to grow in public. He needed you anchored in identity, not addicted to approval. You are entering a chapter where the lessons from your hidden season will quietly set you apart. The patience you develop while waiting will keep you steady when momentum accelerates. The humility you learned in obscurity will guard your heart when affirmation increases. The discipline you practiced when no one was watching will sustain you when everyone is. Private faithfulness always precedes public favor. And here is something powerful: you are not walking into this next level alone. There has been unseen assistance around you this entire time. Protection you never noticed. Delays that were detours from danger. Favor that shielded you from traps disguised as opportunities. What felt like missed chances were often divine interceptions. God was closing doors you were emotionally attached to because He saw what you couldn't. The very skills you developed in survival mode are about to become strengths in leadership mode. Your ability to endure discomfort? That becomes resilience. Your habit of thinking deeply before speaking? That becomes wisdom. Your experience of betrayal? That becomes discernment in choosing trustworthy alliances. Nothing was wasted, not the tears, not the setbacks, not even the seasons where you felt forgotten. And let this settle in your spirit: you are not too old, and you are not too late. The timeline you compared yourself to was never heaven's timeline. God measures readiness differently than culture does. While others rushed, you were being refined. While others broadcasted, you were being built. Now you sense it, a quiet stirring, a steady expectation, a peace that doesn't require proof. That is proximity. You are closer to fulfillment than frustration. Closer to clarity than confusion. Closer to breakthrough than burnout. Guard the season. Protect your focus. Because what is forming around you cannot be handled casually. It must be stewarded carefully. There was a moment, recently, when you felt something inside you grow tired. Not physically tired. Soul tired. You were weary of always being the strong one. The dependable one. The one who holds faith for others while quietly fighting your own battles. You didn't announce it. You didn't dramatize it. But in the privacy of your heart you whispered, "Lord, how much longer?" And that whisper mattered. Because it was honest. And God responds to honest prayers. You've been carrying vision that others couldn't see. Believing in outcomes that haven't manifested yet. Standing firm while circumstances tried to erode your confidence. That kind of endurance is sacred, but it is also exhausting. Especially when you feel like you're walking alone. But you were never walking alone. Even in silence, heaven was attentive. Even in delay, heaven was active. The final stretch before breakthrough often feels like the heaviest resistance. Runners feel the burn most intensely near the finish line. Muscles tremble. Lungs strain. Doubt creeps in. And that is exactly when quitting feels most tempting. But that pressure is not proof that you're failing, it's proof that you're transitioning. Something old is closing. Something new is forming. And the space between those two realities can feel unstable. You may feel like you're standing in between identities, no longer who you were, but not fully who you're becoming. In between doors, some closing behind you, others not yet open. In between clarity and confusion. But in between is not abandonment. It's alignment. It's holy ground. It's where your trust deepens beyond emotion and becomes anchored in conviction. You are not behind schedule. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified because you felt tired. Even Jesus withdrew to rest. Even He asked the Father for strength in moments of pressure. Weariness does not cancel calling. It refines dependence. So breathe. The intensity you're feeling is not permanent, it's transitional. And transition always leads somewhere intentional. Heaven is not scrambling on your behalf. It is orchestrating. And soon, what feels unclear will become undeniable. So watch this alone, not because it is forbidden, but because it is sacred. Some words are not meant for debate. They are meant for incubation. And what God is speaking over you in this season needs quiet soil. Protect what is growing in you. Not everyone deserves access to the blueprint of your becoming. Let them see the fruit when it's time. But guard the seed right now. Chosen one, this is the turning point. The season of silent endurance is shifting into visible confirmation. The tears you cried in private were collected. The prayers you whispered when no one understood were recorded. The nights you felt overlooked were not wasted. They were building spiritual weight that will soon anchor public favor. You were not hidden because you were insignificant. You were hidden because you were valuable. Precious things are stored carefully until the right unveiling. What tried to break your confidence actually built your resilience. What tried to isolate you sharpened your discernment. What tried to delay you aligned your timing. Nothing worked against you permanently, it worked for you strategically. Even the disappointments carved out space for divine appointments. Even the betrayal taught you boundaries that will protect your next level. Now hear this prophetic declaration and let it settle deeply into your spirit. You are stepping into alignment. You are stepping into authority. You are stepping into a grace that makes heavy burdens lighter and uncertain paths clearer. The favor of God will surround you in ways that cannot be explained by talent alone. Doors will open without striving. Conversations will shift without manipulation. Peace will anchor you without external proof. Jesus is not finished with your story. He is the author and the finisher, and what he began in you will reach completion. No weapon formed against you will prosper, not because opposition won't arise, but because covenant covers you. If this message confirmed what you've been sensing, stay connected here. Subscribe and walk this journey with us, because more clarity and encouragement are coming. And if you feel led to support through super thanks or a donation, know that it helps continue reaching other chosen ones who need these reminders. You were preserved for this moment, protected for this purpose, and revealed at the right time. Stay faithful.